Mr. Hayes. This is my brain model, which you can see is made out of different parts of a melon and a little honeybee there as well. So first we have the frontal lobe, which is this part that I carved out. And right here we have the motor cortex, which has to do with nerve impulses. That's where they begin. And this is this part is Broca's area. That has to do with speech and like grammatical structure. Next I have the temporal lobe right here, and I've carved out a section for Wernicke's area, which has to do with comprehension of language, like fluency, more grammar, and speech. I have the occipital lobe here, which has to do with like visual, like seeing, and it's basically the visual cortex of. And the final lobe I have is the parietal lobe, and I've carved out a part for the somatosensory cortex that has to do with like sensory input from the body and has to do with sounds. And the final part of the outside is the pons and the cerebellum. So the pons has to do with kind of relaying information. So that has to do with sleep, breathing, swallowing, bladder control, like hearing. So that's the pons right here. And then next we have the cerebellum, which we learned this week, doesn't completely form until very late in adolescence. And it has to do with receiving information from the sensory systems, just like the somatosensory does. And it regulates motor movements, and it has to do with thought and kind of complex things. Then you can kind of open up my brain like this and see the first part I have is the pituitary gland, which is right here. That's at the base of the brain, as you can tell. And it has to do with the endocrine system and like hormones, basically. Then I've made a small indentation here for the hypothalamus, which works with the pituitary gland for the endocrine system, and it like links it to the nervous system. Next I have the amygdala right here, and that has to do with aggression and fear, and it's one of the only parts of the brain that you can directly correlate to an emotion. So next I have this section, which is basically the thalamus, and that has to do with motor functions and the limbic system. It has to do with kind of feeling, sensations, and movements for the spinal cord. Finally, I have the hippocampus, which is another small indentation right here, and that has to do with memory in the brain. So that's my brain and the functions of the parts that I've included.